Hey guys, first time posting here, but I really need to get this off my chest. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Jessica, 31F, for almost 6 years. Up until a few months ago, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. We met through mutual friends, clicked instantly, and everything felt like it was falling into place. She's funny, smart, and well, used to be caring. We've got 2 kids, Alex, 5, and Lily, 2, and I thought we were just doing the normal married with kids grind. But over the past 6 months or so, things have been weird. It started off small. Jessica got a new job at a marketing firm, and suddenly she's working late. Like all the time. At first, I didn't think much of it. We all go through busy patches, right? But then the excuses started piling up. Late night. Work dinners. Random. Girls' nights. With friends I've never heard of before, and God knows how many times her phone would buzz, and she'd quickly put it face down. I mean, I knew something was up, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. It wasn't until she started acting different with me that I really began to worry. Our sex life, which used to be great, turned into, "I'm too tired," or, "Not tonight, I have a headache," pretty much every time I tried. She'd snap at me over the smallest things, like me leaving a sock on the floor or forgetting to buy her almond milk. And when I tried to talk to her about it, she'd brush it off and say I was being paranoid or controlling. Maybe I was paranoid, but something wasn't sitting right. The Jessica I married would never have treated me like that. I wish I could say that I handled my suspicions like a mature adult, but nope, that wasn't happening. I started snooping. Yeah, I know, it's not the best move, but desperation does strange things to a person. One night, while Jessica was supposedly at a team-building retreat, I decided to take a look at her laptop. She'd left it open, and I figured, what harm could it do? I felt like a detective on a crime show, heart racing and palms sweating. So there I was, scrolling through her emails, when I found something that made my stomach drop. An email thread between her and some guy named Mark. The emails started off innocently enough, work-related chit-chat, the usual. But then it got personal. The tone shifted. She was telling him how exciting it was to meet up for drinks, and how she loved that he knew how to have fun. I felt the blood drain from my face as I read on. There were mentions of late-night texts and, how could we have waited so long to meet? I felt sick. There was no denying it anymore. My wife was flirting, or worse, with someone else. And just as I was trying to process that gut punch, I found another email where she talked about the amazing sex they had together. My hands were shaking as I closed the laptop, trying to catch my breath. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I couldn't believe it. This was happening to me, to us. In that moment, everything came crashing down. All the times she brushed me off, all the late nights, the secretive phone calls, it all made sense now. I was devastated and furious, like I'd just been sucker punched in the gut. It was hard to wrap my head around the reality that the woman I loved was lying to me and sharing our life with someone else. I had to confront her, and I knew it wouldn't be pretty. The moment Jessica walked through the door, I knew it was game time. She had that same smile she always wore, and for a second, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I was wrong? But as she kicked off her shoes and headed straight for the kitchen, I steeled myself. This wasn't going to be easy. Hey, can we talk? I said, my voice steady but my insides twisting like a pretzel. Her expression shifted from casual to cautious. Sure. What's up? She didn't even look me in the eye, which only fueled the fire burning inside me. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding like a jackhammer. I saw your emails, Jessica. The ones with Mark. The silence was deafening. She froze, and for a second, I thought I might actually see her genuinely surprised. But then she rolled her eyes and scoffed. Oh, come on. You're really going to believe that? They're just work emails. You know how I am with clients. I was taken aback by her dismissiveness. Work emails? You were talking about sex, Jessica. You told him it was amazing. Her face flushed, and I saw her gears turning, trying to come up with a cover. You've always been paranoid about my work, haven't you? This is just another example of you not trusting me. She crossed her arms, her tone icy. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I felt the anger surge through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. A mountain? Really? Do you think this is a joke? You've been lying to me. I'm not crazy. I know what I read. You're having an affair. She shot back, her voice rising. I'm not having an affair. You're just trying to twist everything because you're jealous and insecure. I'm sick of this. You always make everything about you. At that moment, I couldn't believe how cold she was being. I was expecting anger, regret, maybe even a shred of guilt, but she was deflecting like a pro. It was like I was confronting a stranger. The woman I loved seemed to be buried under layers of lies and arrogance. As she continued to deny everything, my mind raced. How had we gotten here? How could the woman who once made me feel like I was the only one in the world turn into this? As Jessica's words washed over me, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion and heartbreak. Her denial was like salt in an open wound, and I could feel my heart shattering piece by piece. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it felt like she was shredding the fabric of our life together, everything we built over the past years. I tried to hold it together, but the hurt was overwhelming. Jessica, you're lying to my face. How can you sit here and deny it? You've changed. You're not the same person I married. My voice cracked as the realization of what was happening sunk in. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, but all I saw in her eyes was irritation and annoyance. You're being ridiculous, she shot back, throwing her hands in the air. You think I'm out there having sex with some random guy? You're so insecure it's laughable. Maybe if you weren't such a nag, I'd actually want to be around you. Each word cut deeper than the last. I felt anger bubble up, but it was quickly overshadowed by a profound sadness. I remembered our wedding day, the love, the promises, the dream of building a life together. Now, those memories felt tainted, like a beautiful painting vandalized by a spray can. And then came the realization of my loneliness. Here was this woman, who used to be my confidant and partner, and now she felt like a stranger. I thought about our kids, Alex and Lily. What would they think if they ever found out? Would they see their mom and dad fighting like this? The thought made my heart ache even more. I stepped back, trying to breathe through the chaos of my emotions. I was furious, betrayed, and above all, heartbroken. I could feel my vision blur as tears threatened to spill over. How did it come to this? I had trusted her with everything, my love, my heart, our family, and here she was, shattering it all without a second thought. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who was willing to lie and manipulate to keep her secret life intact. I had a choice to make, and for the first time, the weight of it all felt almost too heavy to bear. The confrontation lingered in the air like a thick fog, making it hard to think straight. I knew I had to make a decision, and I felt the pressure building inside me. I couldn't let this moment pass without a clear path forward. I took a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of control over my emotions. Listen, Jessica, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. I can't keep doing this. If you're not going to be honest with me, then what's the point of this marriage? It's like you're living a double life. I can't trust you, and without trust, we have nothing. She rolled her eyes again, but I pressed on. I want to know if you really want this marriage. Do you want us? Because if you're not willing to be real with me, I don't think I can do this anymore. Her face twisted in anger, but there was something else lurking behind her frustration, a flicker of fear, maybe? Are you really going to throw away everything we've built? Just because of a few emails? She spat. A few emails? I shot back. You've been lying to me, Jessica. This isn't just about that. It's about respect, love, and honesty. I feel like I'm begging you to admit the truth. The silence that followed was thick with tension. I could see the gears turning in her head, but the look on her face was still defiant. It was like she was preparing for battle instead of admitting she had been unfaithful. I realized then that I had to protect myself, even if it meant stepping away from the person I once loved. In that moment, clarity washed over me. I could either stay in a toxic cycle of doubt and betrayal or take a stand for my own well-being. I need space, Jessica, I said firmly. I don't know what this means for us, but I can't keep living like this. I need time to think about what I want, what's best for me and the kids. Her expression shifted from anger to a kind of disbelief, as if I had pulled the rug out from under her. You're just going to throw everything away? You're going to let this ruin our family? I'm not ruining anything, I replied, feeling a strange mix of anger and determination. You did this. You chose to lie. I'm just trying to figure out what's next for me. For us. As the gravity of my decision settled in, I felt both liberated and terrified. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I had to start putting myself first. The idea of being alone scared me, but staying in a broken marriage felt like a prison. I had to give myself the chance to heal, no matter how hard that would be. After our confrontation, I moved into the guest room. It felt surreal to be in the same house as Jessica but so disconnected. I could hear her moving around at night, sometimes talking on the phone, and I wondered if she was talking to Mark. The thought sent a wave of anger through me, but I tried to focus on my kids. They needed me to be strong. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into parenting. I took the kids to the park, helped them with their school projects, and tried to keep things as normal as possible for them. I didn't want them to feel the storm brewing between their parents, and I desperately clung to those moments of laughter and joy. They were my light in the darkness. Jessica and I would pass each other in the hallway, exchanging cold glances but avoiding any real conversations. I could see the frustration and confusion in her eyes. It was a strange dynamic, like living with a ghost of the past. I often thought about how much I missed her, the real her, not this distant woman who had shattered my trust. I longed for the days when we would curl up on the couch together, sharing silly jokes and dreams for our future. Slowly, I started to regain my sense of self. I began seeing a therapist to process everything. Talking through my emotions was incredibly cathartic. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt, angry, and betrayed. These feelings were part of my healing journey. I also started to realize that I deserved better. Better than being lied to. Better than living in a shadow of doubt and betrayal. The breakthrough came one day when I decided to have a heart-to-heart with Jessica. I wasn't sure what I wanted, whether it was reconciliation or a clean break, but I knew we needed to clear the air. I invited her to sit down with me after the kids went to bed. Can we talk? I said, my heart pounding. Jessica looked hesitant, but she nodded. I don't want to keep fighting like this. I want to understand what happened, I said, trying to keep my tone calm. Can you be honest with me about you and Mark? She hesitated, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. I don't know how to explain it. I was feeling lost, and Mark was there, listening to me. I never meant for it to go this far, but it just did. I'm sorry. Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. I felt a mix of anger and sadness bubbling up again, but this time, I could see the sincerity in her eyes. Maybe she hadn't realized how far she'd drifted from our marriage until it was almost too late. I think we need to figure out what we want, I replied carefully. I'm not sure if we can go back to how things were, but I'd like to try to work through this. If you're willing to be honest and really commit to rebuilding trust, I'm open to it. But if you still want to see Mark, then I think we need to consider separating for good. Her expression softened, and I could see the weight of my words sink in. I want to work on us, she said, tears brimming in her eyes. I really do. I was just scared. I realized then that we had both been scared of losing each other, scared of the truth. But as we sat there, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could rebuild our marriage from the ashes of betrayal. This experience has taught me that relationships require constant communication, vulnerability, and trust. I've learned to listen to my gut and not ignore the signs when something feels off. And most importantly, I've learned the importance of valuing myself and my feelings. For anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. It's better to confront the truth, no matter how painful it is. You deserve to be treated with love and respect, and if your partner isn't doing that, it's okay to put your well-being first. Relationships can heal, but both parties must be willing to be honest and open. Here's to hoping for brighter days ahead. After that conversation, things didn't magically get better overnight. Jessica apologized, and while I could sense she meant it, the damage had already been done. The trust was shattered, and every time her phone buzzed or she mentioned staying late at work, I couldn't help but wonder if it was all happening again. We started going to couples therapy, which was awkward at first. Sitting across from a therapist, talking about intimate details of your life while the person who betrayed you sits next to you, isn't exactly easy. But over time, it became a space where we could actually speak honestly, without screaming or walking away in frustration. The therapist made us do this exercise where we had to say one thing we missed about each other. It was hard. I was still so angry, and it felt like admitting I missed anything about Jessica was betraying myself. But I forced myself to do it. I missed the way we used to stay up late, just talking. I admitted during one session. I miss feeling like I was your person. Jessica broke down in tears then, and it was the first time I'd seen her cry since this whole thing started. She told me she missed the way I made her feel safe, and how she never realized how much she'd taken that for granted. Still, no matter how many tears were shed or how many sessions we had, the truth loomed large. I wasn't sure I could forgive her. Not fully. Not yet. I tried to put myself in her shoes. Jessica claimed that she had never actually fallen out of love with me, that what happened with Mark was a mistake born out of stress, loneliness, and emotional disconnect. And while part of me understood that, the other part of me couldn't shake the betrayal. I couldn't forget the image of her laughing with someone else, giving him the affection and attention she used to give me. There were days when I thought about leaving, about walking away from it all. I imagined myself getting my own place, splitting time with the kids and starting fresh. But then I'd look at Alex and Lily, and my resolve would falter. I wanted to fight for my family, even if it meant swallowing my pride and enduring the pain. Jessica, to her credit, really tried to make amends. She cut off all contact with Mark, she was more open about her schedule, and she did her best to show me that she was committed to fixing things. But it was hard to let go of the anger and resentment that clung to me like a second skin. Every kind gesture felt like a reminder of how far we'd fallen. Ultimately, the hardest part was realizing that even though I loved Jessica, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. And without trust, what were we really fighting for? I was torn between wanting to believe that we could heal and the nagging voice in my head that told me it was never going to be the same. As time went on, I realized that staying in limbo wasn't healthy, for me, for Jessica, or for our kids. It was exhausting, constantly trying to decide if I could rebuild the trust, or if I even wanted to. I didn't want to be the guy who stayed in a marriage out of fear of being alone or for the sake of the kids. They'd pick up on the tension eventually, and that wasn't the kind of environment I wanted for them. One night, after the kids were asleep, I sat Jessica down for another talk. This time, there was no yelling, no accusations. Just two people facing the truth. "Jess, I've been doing a lot of thinking," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know you've been trying, and I appreciate that. But I don't know if I can move past this. I don't know if I can ever feel the way I used to." Her face fell, but she nodded. "I get it. I've been waiting for this conversation, honestly. I love you, but this betrayal changed everything for me. I don't want to keep dragging this out if it's only going to hurt us more in the long run." Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment, I felt the weight of all the good memories we had built together. The vacations, the late-night talks, the moments where we felt like a real team. But those memories were now clouded by the betrayal, and no amount of effort seemed to clear that fog. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I know. But you did. And I've been trying to move forward, but I don't think we're the same people anymore. I think it's time to face that." For a long time, we sat there in silence. I could see the sadness in her eyes, but also a kind of acceptance. We both knew this wasn't what we wanted, but it was what had to happen. The next morning, we told the kids that Mommy and Daddy were going to take a break from living together. Alex was confused and asked a million questions, while Lily just hugged me, not really understanding what was happening. It broke my heart, but I knew that this was the right choice for all of us. We worked out a plan for shared custody, and surprisingly, the process of separating our lives wasn't as messy as I feared. Maybe because, in a way, we'd already started to drift apart long before the affair. It felt like we were finally being honest about something that had been quietly unraveling for years. Now, a few months later, I'm in my own place. I miss having my kids with me every day, and sometimes I still think about the life we were supposed to have as a family. But I've found a sense of peace in this new chapter. I'm focused on healing, on being a good dad, and on figuring out who I am outside of being Jessica's husband. The biggest lesson I've learned is that sometimes, love isn't enough to keep a relationship alive. Trust is just as important, and once it's gone, everything else starts to fall apart. I tried to save my marriage, and in the end, I realized that walking away was the healthiest thing I could do for myself and my kids. For anyone reading this who's going through something similar, don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to stand up for your own happiness. You can't fix something that's already broken beyond repair, and sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let go.